there, my name is Rya Bohmer, and today I'm going to talk to you about a little mushroom called the poor man's porcini. Now, if you don't recognize it by this name, perhaps you know it by its more common name, the lilac bolete. Now, if you were to do some research, you would find out that the lilac bolete is in fact the cousin to the highly sought after porcini, also known as the King Bolete. And even though the lilac bolete doesn't share the stocky build, it does in fact share the delicious edibility and flavor. I would love to send out an invitation to invite you out into the wilderness to learn a little bit more about the poor man's porcini. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of my joyful videos. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy, and let's get on to it. The flock and I are currently just taking a hike through our woodlands looking for any sign of the poor man's porcini. Typically, my chickens give me a little bit of fungi luck, especially this one right here. So hopefully we can find us a beautiful lilac bolete. I'm currently in a forest dominated by the beech tree, the hickory tree, an oak tree, the cedar tree, and lastly, elm and the maple tree. According to my big book of boletes, I've been hiking for about 30 minutes now, and I finally came across a small group of 3 lilac boletes, also known as the poor man's porcini. Now, before I get into any key identification of this mushroom, I want to talk to you about the scientific name. For those of you who don't know, the scientific name is comprised of 2 parts, the first being the genus and the second being the genus epithet. Now, the scientific name for the lilac bolete is Boletus separans. The first is the genus, so let's talk about Boletus. Boletus is a group of mushrooms, the boletes, and the boletes have pores on the underside of the cap. And another thing about the boletes is they typically will have a stem that is growing terrestrially from the ground, not from wood. Now, the second part of the scientific name, separans, is the genus epithet, and this will describe a little something about the mushroom. So separans is Latin for separating, meaning this mushroom will start to separate from the cap as it matures. Here you can see that actually starting to happen. So there you have it. There's a little information about the scientific name of the lilac bolete. And now it's time to identify this mushroom. First, we're going to start with the cap. So the cap should be 5 to 15 centimeters wide. It's going to be convex to broadly convex. Its margin, which is the outside of the mushroom, is going to be even. The surface is going to be dry, somewhat velvety or glabrous, often pitted, maybe even wrinkly. Here you can see that it kind of resembles a hamburger bun. Next, it's going to be a color varying from creamy white to tinge like pinkish brown, light brown, reddish brown, or sometimes even dark purple. Next, the most important part, the flesh is going to be white, unchanging when exposed, which means that it's not going to bruise any sort of color. Typically, when you have a bolete, it's going to bruise maybe a blue or a brown, but this should not bruise at all. One thing, this is a pretty maggot-infested mushroom, but you can still see that at one point, this flesh was white. Yeah, here you can see the maggots are starting to infest this poor mushroom, but that's the way it goes. The taste of this mushroom should actually be sweet and nutty or not distinctive at all. I'm not going to taste this one right now because it's fairly old and pretty maggot infested, but you can smell, and it definitely has a sweet smell. Very mushroomy. I know that's not a very good description, but it's definitely very mushroomy. Here we've got semi-white flesh, turning slightly yellow just due to maggot infestation. The pores and tubes of this mushroom are going to start off white, and eventually as the mushroom matures, it's going to turn yellow. Here you can see that has happened. Next, we're going to talk about the stalk of this mushroom. So the stalk should be pretty equal all around. It shouldn't be bulbous or club-like at the bottom. It's going to have a reticulation, which means it's just going to have a slight pattern. And there's going to be no ring, no partial veil or anything. And it's going to overall have an ombre, which means it fades from a certain color, of a lilac or a purple. Now, when you first get this mushroom as a very young mushroom, it's going to be more white overall, as you see here at the base. And then it's going to start turning to a lilac or purple. Next, we're going to talk about this mushroom's habitat and its season. This mushroom can either be solitary, scattered, or in small clusters of 3 to 4. Like this one, I found a small cluster of 3 mushrooms, though I have found some clusters that range up to 5. And the season of this mushroom is late spring through all of summer and into fall. In the most southern regions, though, it can go all winter long. Here I'm on an eastern facing slope, which is where the mushroom tends to be growing the most. One of my favorite things about this mushroom, and the one thing that separates it from its cousin, the actual porcini, is its frequency. This mushroom is found very, very commonly in the eastern North America. The porcini is more of a western mushroom, which is why I don't really have much luck in the upstate of South Carolina finding the porcini. And that's why I call this the poor man's porcini, because it's not as, sought after as the porcini, but it's basically everywhere, and it's as delicious. Now we're going to talk about the spore print of this lilac bolete. For those of you who are brand new to mushroom hunting, a spore print is when you take the cap of the mushroom and separate it from the stem, placing it on some sort of surface. I typically use tin foil. And over time, typically 1 to 2 hours, the spores will drop from the underside of the cap and leave a specific color, which will help you identify the type of mushroom. Spores can range all sorts of colors. They can be white all the way to black. And the spore print of this particular mushroom should be brown. I'm using Boletes of Eastern North America by the Biscuit as a reference, and in this reference it talks about the microscopic features of this mushroom. So here they are. I'm not really going to talk about those much, just because many beginning mushroom hunters don't actually have a microscope, but here they are for any of you who would like to know. This mushroom only has one lookalike, and it is called Xanthiconium purpurea. Now, the way you distinguish the two is the Xanthiconium will stain a yellow to brown color when bruised, and its cap is slightly darker than the lilac bolete. Well, that's all I have to say about the poor man's porcini. I hope you learned something, and let me know in the comments if you, in fact, eat this mushroom. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.